Item number 14, this is consider approving the updated athletic field use policy, and this is continued from April 20th. Our public comment has been closed and remains closed for this item. And so if staff would give us a brief recap of where we stood on this before we continue this item to today.
Mayor Paul.
Welcome back, Jenny.
Hi, Jenny Coverman, Recreation Supervisor, here again to talk about the field use study. Would you like me to show you the recap of the Parks and Recreation Commission recommendation? That slide that had that on it?
How about just a brief recap of the recommendations, to the extent that you can remember the discussion points that we left it at. That would be that would be great. But otherwise, why don't we just take a look at the recommendation, the staff recommendation, and we'll get those summary points and move forward from there.
Okay.
And if you have anything to add with regard to public input that has come in since that point, happy to hear that as well.
Okay, let me share my screen. I'll touch on the Parks and Recreation Commission recommendation first. Can you see that slide?
Yes.
Let me make that bigger. So the Parks and Recreation Commission did meet last month, was presented with this topic, and they did, with one commissioner absent, they unanimously recommended that City Council adopt the updated athletic field use policy with the following components: to expand Sundays to 2 additional Sundays per year from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. for games and practices, an hourly fee structure starting resident youth sports groups at $10 an hour and all others at 25% cost recovery, and scheduled field closures as needed. And I believe where we left it last time after public comment, there were several comments. Little League was concerned about the fee increase and how that would affect them. And there were several comments from cricket users about continued pickup play and use on Sundays.
Great. Well, thank you very much. That was perfect. I'll go ahead and bring this back to council. I'm setting it at 6 minutes each, so that should give us a totality of half an hour. At this point, I won't ask for a motion. Let me give everyone an opportunity to speak first. Keep in mind that you only have 6 minutes in total, and so I recommend that perhaps you start us off with some initial thoughts. If anyone would like to bring a motion, I'd be more than happy to entertain that for the purposes of initiating that discussion. And so I'll keep this order of hands raised if the request was to speak. That's Councilmember Moore and Councilmember Willie. But if you would take your hands down now, if you want to bring a motion, please raise your hand. And so I'll go ahead and call on Councilmember Moore for that purpose.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. I move that we approve the updated field use policy, and we have council perform a review update from staff in 1 year to see how it's going.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to second Councilmember Moore's motion? Vice Mayor Chow.
Sorry, I was hoping to offer an amendment. I hope that we delay the increase of fee by 1 year.
Let me ask a point of clarification to our city attorney. So, Madam City Attorney, do we need to entertain an amendment to a motion that's on the table before or after a second has been made to the motion, or can an amendment be made before a second is made to a motion that has been placed on the table?
I think a friendly amendment's an informal way of trying to clarify the motion made, so it could be before or after a second.
Okay. Councilmember Moore, will you accept Vice Mayor Chow's friendly amendment to your motion to delay the change in fees by a year?
I would want to hear some comments from staff about that and what went on last year with regards to fees. And to my understanding, there has been, at least maybe a 14-year gap since the field fees have been looked at, and we are looking at moving them in line with the neighboring cities. So I'd like to hear an opinion from staff. So
Okay, let's do this just by point of procedure. Let's hear what staff has to say about that. And then I'll go back to you, Councilmember Moore, to see if you're willing to accept that
And can I
friendly
give my
amendment.
reasons? Can I give my reasons also before?
Oh, okay, well, let me
Councilmember
let staff speak to the inquiry, and then we'll go back to you, Vice Mayor Chow, with regard to your actually let's do this. Let's go to Vice Mayor Chow because you're the one who made the friendly amendment. What are your reasons for asking for that delay?
Okay, so I think this past year, the membership of many of the sport organizations have gone down and they have been unstable. So, and then usually an organization needs to do planning and budgeting also ahead of time. So changing it now is very hard for them to plan. So I think we can give if we increase, we can say we will increase in 1 year, then they will plan for that increase. And by that time, their membership would have more stabilized and they can do better budgeting. And then if they do need to move from Cupertino, they will have time to plan. So I think
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. And so Councilmember Moore had a question to staff with regard to what your feedback is with regard to a suggestion of delaying the proposed fee increase by a year.
We will just comment that the fees have not been updated, as Councilman Moore pointed out, since 2005. So it has been some time. In a survey of all the other cities, they also have an hourly fee schedule. With this hourly structure, it would also allow us to be a little bit more efficient in our scheduling and also enforcement of that scheduling process. So if it were delayed, it would also delay the implementation of those efficiencies.
Okay, anyone else from staff like to speak to that? Okay, I don't see other staff members speaking up. So we'll go back to Councilmember Moore. Will you accept that friendly amendment to your motion?
No.
Okay, I'll go back to council to see by show of raised hands whether anybody will second Councilmember Moore's motion. Councilmember Way.
Actually, I will second it with another friendly amendment. And here's my amendment. The extra 2 Sundays, instead of just limit to 10 to 2, let it be 10 to 4, so that at least the extra 2 Sundays, they can do a tournament instead of just games. I think that's pretty reasonable for 2 extra hours for the 2 extra Sundays. So I would second Councilmember Moore's move, and then with this friendly amendment, see if
Okay, so let me just clarify what you're saying, Councilmember Way. Are you seconding and then suggesting a friendly amendment? Or are you seconding conditional upon?
With a friendly amendment.
Okay.
I'm seconding with a friendly amendment.
All right, so let's go back to Councilmember Moore to see if she accepts your friendly amendment, first of all, before you condition your seconding upon that. So my understanding of the friendly amendment is that the Sundays are extended to 4 p.m. as opposed to 2 p.m. So 10 to 4 for the extra Sunday.
That's correct, Mayor Paul. Yes.
Councilmember Moore, will you accept that friendly amendment?
I would like to hear from staff if they've had any issues with Sunday field use historically, and what, just to reiterate what the changes with the new field use policy for Sunday use. So what do we have currently and what do we have planned? And overall, my concern is that that we have over-programmed fields, particularly on the park-starved east side. So I want to avoid that. Okay.
Okay. Any input from staff?
So if I understood correctly what you asked, Councilmember Moore, so currently groups are allowed 2 Sundays per year for tournaments, and that, again, we have a blanket policy right now. And so that can be at as many sites as they would like. And so that would continue under the new policy. in the current proposal from commission, the recommendation from commission, that would add 2 Sundays for each group at a field, but each field is a Sunday. So again, I think I used the example before that Creekside Park is 3 fields. And if you chose to use 1 Sunday, you got 1 field and you would still have 1 field left. But if you chose to use 2 fields on that same day, you're done for the year. That is what that allocation would be. So you asked about current Sunday use. I wasn't quite sure what you meant by that, if you could clarify.
Have there been any groups that have been using the fields on Sundays currently past the tournament allocation that they have? Has that been any issue?
Permitted groups or unpermitted groups?
I guess it would be unpermitted.
It would be unpermitted because we don't allow permit on Sundays. Yes, so we do have some, there's always a rogue group and anywhere at any time. There could be adults or what have you. There has been pickup play allowed on library fields from a previous city manager with cricket. And we have had a few issues lately at Library Field where we have stopped allowing pickup play.
And has Creekside been enforced, or was this just a focus on Library Field?
It's really complaint based, and so it has been Library Field.
Okay.
That we know of.
Okay, so let's just for example, you want to have a tournament. You need, I want to say you need 10 fields for your tournament. How would that work with this new rule?
So just to clarify, the additional 2 Sundays are for 1 field. It's intended for a practice or a game, like a makeup game or something. It's not intended for a tournament.
Okay. So I'm not really sure if I accept the changes suggested by Councilmember Way. I'm not sure what the difference is going to be. Can somebody explain that a little bit?
I think I can explain it because people approach me and I ask them what's the difference between the 2 hours. So currently, the Sunday use, they can use the current 2 Sundays for tournament until 4. It's very hard to host a tournament until 2 o'clock. So what they're asking is for the 2 extra Sundays, they can still, not in addition to games, they can still hold a tournament, has that option to until 4 o'clock. That's what my impression is. And I think that's pretty reasonable because, tournaments are important for them. And if they don't want to do tournament, they can still just practice, right? So it just gives them that flexibility. There's 2 extra Sundays, they can use it as tournament. Because if we end at 2, they just said it's very hard to host a tournament for 2. And so instead of 2 Sundays, now they're going to have 4 Sundays to host tournaments.
Okay, could staff?
I'm sorry, is that correct?
The new policy.
I'm asking staff, is that?
Sure. So they continue with their 2 tournaments that they have now. In the new policy, the intention of the additional Sundays is for games and practices only. It's not intended for additional tournaments.
Right. And I was approached by a few of them to say, give them the flexibility to host tournament.
I see what you're saying. So it's not just additional 10 to 4, it's additional tournament for allowing tournaments as well, is what you're saying.
Right, because if 10 to 4, then yes, then they would be able to host tournaments on those 2 days.
May I ask through the mayor, Councilmember Way, what groups approached you regarding this?
It's actually the cricket group. Because for them, they only can use the library field, right? Because the rest of the fields is not big enough. So they really would prefer it. They said if they have the extra 2 Sundays, if they can host tournament there, they would be, it just give them more flexibility in their games, in their whole, what they're doing.
Great, thank you. And also through the mayor, I'm wondering if staff could clarify if we're looking at 2 extra Sunday tournament days, is that correct?
So what's being proposed this evening before any amendments is 2 additional, so they have 2 existing tournament Sundays, and we're proposing 2 additional Sundays, non-tournament, 1 field for games and practices. If it's council's desire, we could take an amendment to change that to allow 4 total tournaments a year, or, you know, the 2 additional Sundays could allow for a tournament, assuming you only rent 1 field.
Okay, so as I understand it, the answer is no to accepting that modification from Councilmember Wei.
Okay, do we have a willing second to the motion on the table? I see Councilmember Woolley, your hand is raised, as is Vice Mayor Chow's. Are you raising your hand in order to second the motion?
No, it's this discussion that's going on and needing some clarification.
Okay.
So,
And Vice Mayor Chow, are you raising your hand to second the motion that's on the table?
No, I have questions.
Okay, so let me do this. Since we don't have a second for Councilmember Moore's motion, and I want to keep us, aware of timing, I'm going to start putting people on a timer. And when we get to roughly half of our time, total elapsed, I'll go ahead and require a motion before we proceed. So, Vice Mayor Chow, I believe you were after Councilmember Woolley. Councilmember Woolley, did you want to speak to the topic at this point?
yes, I do. I've got a couple different ones. I'll start with the first one, where we have agenda item 13 and agenda item 14. And it kind of sounds like we're combining them by bringing the fee schedule into number 14, which is the field use agenda item. I mean, I'm okay with bringing them together, but I'm thinking that they are intended to be done separate. First, we decide what the field use is, then we decide on what we're doing with the fees.
Good point.
So first that's that, and then I'll come back with the other question. But that clarification, because I think we're getting wrapped around the wheel here.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Woolley. Would anyone from staff like to speak to that?
So the field use policy includes an outlining of what the fees are, which is why when you adopt this policy, you would also be saying we support these fees, and then subsequently we would update the fee schedule to match what you choose tonight.
Okay, let's go to Vice Mayor Chow. Vice Mayor Chow.
Okay. So I wonder, for example, for library field, how many Sundays they are currently being used, and how many teams are regularly using, so we can have an estimate how many Sundays might be used after we adopt this policy.
It would depend on what you decide for Sundays. Currently, they use 2 a year for tournaments, and whatever would be decided would be how many. So right now, currently only cricket uses that field. We adjusted, it used to be youth volleyball was there as well, but we moved them to another field, which allowed cricket to play longer on Saturdays. So it's given them additional time on Saturdays. So currently it is only cricket that uses library field, and it would be 2 additional.
So it's only 2 Sundays out of 52. Oh,
Correct.
I thought there might be multiple teams.
5 minutes.
So with the ordinance, we are adding 2 more Sundays that might be up to 4 p.m. And then that's at most 4 Sundays a year.
Per group, and we have 9 groups currently.
We have 9 groups?
We have 9 groups currently. They each would be allowed to have the 2 tournaments, and if adopted, the 2 additional Sundays. So
all using the library field?
No, not on library field.
Not library field, right?
Right, only
So
cricket is on library
field. Currently only 1 team, likely
Correct.
1 more. Then we are talking about like 8 days out of a year. And so the other 9, are they all in? I mean, for the other field, what's the maximum number of tournament days now they have?
Everyone's maximum is 2.
So everyone's maximum is 2.
Yep.
Is that a limit we set so that if another team that also requests tournament days on the same field, we say no, at most 2 teams can have it?
I can answer some of that. Some of why this has a limitation is because it does compete with the residents' use of the field space on Sundays. And based on the feedback that we're getting, residents do want to have access to those fields. It also, the tournaments bring more people with them. And so it can impact parking. It can impact how many people are at the site. And so by limiting tournaments, we limit that crowd.
I understand the reason. I want to understand the scope. So my question is, do we have existing policy that at most 2 teams can run a tournament on one site? Or
No, so-
we are just lucky that at most 1 right now run tournament on any site?
So the way the permitting process works right now, when they typically don't request they have a deadline for the season on when they would request when they would request the days they would like to practice, etc., have games. And then either at that time at the beginning of the season or some point during the season, they request their Sunday for a tournament. And so we know if there's already another tournament scheduled at those fields, and so they would have to change their date. So we never have
You are
to.
saying there is a limit now, or you are not, there is not really a limit, but you are trying to manage it so that no 2 teams have, no one side have 2 teams with tournament.
Right. They have, well, we have 27 fields and we only have 9 groups. So we aren't using the Sundays that we could be using based on what we have. And not all groups have tournaments. So so they aren't even using their Sundays.
Okay, then I think I'm comfortable seconding Councilmember Wei's friendly amendment with the, I guess, an additional amendment with the understanding that no more than 8 maximum Sundays will be used for either tournament or the additional Sunday use.
Okay, I'm going to pause your time, Vice Mayor Chow. Councilmember Wei has not made a motion. She simply asked for a friendly amendment to Councilmember Moore's motion, which was not seconded. So you can either bring forward a motion, or you can ask Councilmember Wei to bring forward the motion if you like. But there's nothing to second at this point.
Okay, I could bring a substitute motion or Councilmember.
No, there's no
Wei
motion.
would do.
You would just bring the motion.
No motion yet. Okay.
Would you like to bring that motion at this time?
I could bring one, or Councilmember Wei, would you like to? Okay, I'll try it. Okay, so I move to approve the proposed field use policy and with the extension that the 2 additional Sunday use would be allowed from 10 to 4 p.m. But then for each field, there will be no more than 8 Sunday use, no more than days of Sunday use, either tournament or the Sunday field use. Sorry, it's not framed very clearly.
If I could clarify, I think the desire to expand the time from till 4 p.m. Is definitely doable. I think adding the stipulation of no more than 8 Sundays at a particular field will prove maybe logistically challenging. I'm not certain, but I just wanted to put that out.
I thought that's what the staff has been doing.
So we limit it per group, and we make sure there's no scheduling conflicts at fields. And we would, as a practice, we don't schedule 2 Sundays at a specific field back to back. But the limitation is on per group, they get X number of tournaments or they get X number of Sundays. In this case, it would be 2 tournament Sundays and then 2 one-field Sundays. But that we don't determine which field they're allowed to go to, as long as there's no scheduling conflict.
Okay, so my limitation is making sure, it seems right now, in any field, there is no more than 4 Sundays that's used. So I just want to be sure that it's no more than 8. And if it's, so the staff is saying it's hard to manage, even though you do try to keep it down.
So I think the example that you're using for library field is a little bit simpler, but I think when we get into the other sports like soccer, where there's multiple organizations using soccer fields and they have so many soccer fields, I think it could become challenging.
Then let me ask the question again. What's the maximum number of days when a field will be used on Sundays that we have right now?
Well, right now, if every group used their Sundays under the current policy, it would be 18 Sundays. And I believe they're using 11.
Altogether, right?
Correct.
So it's not really a lot.
Because there's some teams that don't have tournaments,
okay,
etc.
Then maybe we don't need to set that max. We will, in case there is really overuse, we can just come back with.
And remember that Sunday use is only given to regular weekday users. So right now, though, you have to be a regular weekday user with us to even get the 2 tournaments, which is just the 9 groups that we have currently.
Okay, then the motion is simply what Councilmember Wei stated, that the staff recommendation with the extension of Sunday use from 10 to 4.
Okay, would anyone like to second Vice Mayor Chaw's motion? And if you could put your hands down for the purpose of the second. Councilmember Wei?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we had some hands up before. I'll go ahead and call on Councilmember Moore and Councilmember Willie. I don't remember who had their hand up first between the 2 of you. Councilmember Willie, you have your hand up, or well, actually, I think Councilmember Moore actually had her hand up first. So I'll go ahead and call on Councilmember Moore, followed by Councilmember Willie.
So I have kind of a question for staff. In the previous field use policy, which was from 2004, you had category 3 priority, which was Cupertino resident, youth, commercial, nonprofit organization, and that was $11 per player per season for residents and $66 per player per season of non-residents. And then you had a non-resident youth commercial nonprofit organization, $11 per player per season for residents, $88 per player per season for non-residents. And Diane's Force Youth Soccer Club fell into the category 7. And then you also have an item here for an organization within an organization, or quote, under the umbrella of an organization. Any organization found to be scheduling field time for use by another organization that would otherwise have a lower priority for field scheduling will have its permit revoked for the season and will be last priority for field scheduling for the next season. And so that's looking at the old policy. At the new policy, I don't see that specific designation for using the word commercial, nonprofit, and maybe I'm just, it's an oversight, but I don't see the umbrella policy requirement, the prohibition for an umbrella organization. And also in the listing, in the staff report, you mentioned, I think you said 9 sports groups, but I don't see Force, Dan's of Force Soccer Club on the list. And so I don't really know what the difference in their fee total payment would be with this sports group fee change. And I was wondering if you could, if you broke down Dan's Youth Soccer versus Dan's Force Soccer Club, because Dan's Youth Soccer was always parent volunteers, whereas Force was paid coaching, kind of a different approach.
Correct. It's my understanding that Deanza, we did simplify the priority groups. It is my understanding that Deanza Force is the same category as Deanza Youth Soccer, that they are a nonprofit organization. And so they fall into the same category. Is that correct, Karen? I believe. Yeah, and they would pay the same.
Okay, so I just the coaches are
True.
paid.
Again, if you wanted us to break that out into have them reserved separately, that is something that you could request that we do.
Yes, absolutely. Because to me, for liability purposes, because each organization has their own insurance, and you're not sure what youth soccer organization that they're registering through and how they're being insured. I would definitely want to see De Anza Force directly permitting for the fields that they are using. And I'm also curious what feedback you got from the Force Soccer Club regarding this fee change, and if you got some different feedback from UISL.
I believe we did. Let me check that. I do have that information. I don't believe they had particular feedback on the policy.
Okay, thank you. And then previously, as a soccer mom with my kids in the league and in the club, the $11 for the residents and the $88 for the non-residents made sense because essentially these are the Cupertino fields. So it's looking like, and I want to see which is why I asked for the 1 year return and have information brought for council, because I want to see what the parents in the club have to say about the fees and the difference now, because you could very well have your residents subsidizing out of city residents, and we're talking, when I say out of city, these are very competitive teams. We're talking Modesto. Kids come from a very far distance to come and play on these fields, and I'm also very, very concerned about giving up Creekside's Sunday day off. It's been historically that's the neighbors get to use that space. They have quiet time there, and the neighborhood gets to use it. So I'm very concerned about that, especially considering that Sedgwick is off limits. You can't play there, and then you've got Hyde has play. There's people who do pickup games there, and so I'm very concerned about losing field space.
Okay, let's go on to Councilmember Willie. You have 39 seconds left, Councilmember Moore. Councilmember Willie.
How much time is left?
You have 4 minutes and 50 seconds.
Okay, good. So a little clarification. I'm understanding what we're deliberating on here, 2 Sundays per year, but I think there's an additional item which I hope we can understand and not have it be left out. As I was kind of understanding, the cricket group had a previous agreement, or an agreement with the previous city manager for pickup games to the extent of 2 Sundays per month. And I think I heard you say that has now been removed. Has it in fact been removed, and has, the rules been clearly published? Because it sure seems from the emails that we're getting, there's some confusion as to, what the understanding is.
Sure. About almost 2 years ago, there was an understanding with cricket when they came to us and asked for pickup play. There were guidelines that about pickup play, that it was not to be organized. It was not for practices. It was just, pickup play, which is you and your friends go and you play, you play a game. It's not scheduled. There's no uniforms, etc. In that time frame, there have been several times where we have reiterated the guidelines for that pickup play, and we've had several complaints through code enforcement on Sundays regarding that it does not meet the guidelines of pickup play that were set for them.
So on that, as I think I'm hearing from them, they're still confused in the sense that they say that while they do put on their jerseys that they have, and that they do let people know via the internet, but they say that it is still considered in their mind pickup games. Of course, we need clear rules and stuff, and I'm thinking they're still going to be confused unless, we somehow codify what is and is not allowed. So it's sounding like there is no use of the field for organized play of any kind except for the 2 days a year on Sunday. We're only talking about Sunday, except for the 2 days a year that they register for whatever type of game or tournament or whatever it is. Other than those two, I mean, if that's truly what we're saying, I really hope we've reached out to them and made sure that they are understanding that, and they're not going to find out with code enforcement that that wasn't their understanding.
I think we've had several conversations with Cricket about the guidelines for pickup play.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Woolley. We have Councilmember Moore, and Councilmember Moore, you have about 40 seconds left.
Okay, if there's some way I would like to exempt Creekside Park from the extended suggestions that are on the table right now, and I would like us to come back in a year, and because I'm concerned that there's a potential that you'll actually be ultimately losing revenue by this new model. So I'd like it to come back in a year and see if this is actually working as you expected. Sometimes you have 3 teams on a field, so that you might not end up having the revenue increase that you think is going to happen.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Moore. Vice Mayor Chow, will you accept that as a friendly amendment? I'm hearing Councilmember Moore wants to exempt Creekside. I don't know what that is, but in terms of the request to change the motion on the table, would you be willing to exempt Creekside as well as extend the as well as to revisit this issue of how the fees are doing in 1 year?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Why do we want to exempt one site and not library field, for example? Someone else would want to exempt library field, another person want to exempt another park, and they are not here. So.
Okay, Vice Mayor Chow, Councilmember Moore, would you like to speak to Vice Mayor Chow's question?
Sure. So for Creekside Park, I appreciate the policy as it is without the extended extra days. Creekside Park is in a impacted area. It's in a park-starved area, and I don't want to see like extended use of the field because the neighbors aren't going to have access to it. And returning it to a year I think that part was understood. Just to see how it's going. Is it working like we intended it to? Are there complaints that we need to address? Those types of things.
Vice Mayor Chow, having heard that clarification from Councilmember Moore, would you be willing to exempt?
Could the staff let us understand how many Sundays Creekside Park is being used right now as tournament days?
Karen, do you know that information? Or
We think we're estimating about 10.
10 days? Oh,
10 Sundays at Creekside.
that's a lot. And then with the Sunday use, then that I thought it's like at most 2 on each side. So this is 10, and then each tournament would occupy multiple fields, as I understand, right? And for an entire day.
of the 2, under the current, yes, their tournaments Sundays would continue the way they currently are, which would be as many sites as they would like. The additional Sundays would only be per field, so it would be 2 fields.
But 10 is already a lot, which is why I wanted to set a max for each field per year. That way, no one field would be too overused. But then the staff is saying that's hard to coordinate, to manage, administer.
Okay, let's not get too far off the topic here, because the question right now is whether you accept the friendly amendment made by Councilmember Moore. And that question has to do with exempting Creekside Park from the 10 to 4. So if you're going to go off topic, then I need to put you back on the time. Will you accept that friendly amendment?
I would not want to exempt a particular site. However, I am willing to amend the motion to set a maximum number of days of Sunday use for each field.
It's your own motion. So are you looking to
Yeah.
amend it?
So would Councilmember Moore think that's acceptable?
What? Okay. From a procedural perspective, this is your motion. You don't need
Okay.
for somebody else to amend the motion if that's what you want to. Yeah. Okay. So
Okay. So, but then the staff's input was this is hard to administer. So I'm ignoring. Are you suggesting that we ignore staff's input? Then okay, I'll amend my motion to include a cap of 10 Sunday use for any field under this policy.
point of
So
clarification: are you including tournaments, Vice Mayor Chow? So if a tournament uses
yeah.
if a tournament uses 10 fields, is that all of your Sundays there?
No, I mean the same field for any one single field.
You want to limit use of one particular field to okay, certain amount.
Yeah, that way it's more fairly. So no one field is too heavily used. That way, the local residents still have 42 Sundays.
Okay, does staff understand that? And are there any comments as to the feasibility of that?
I just wanted to understand if that was field or site.
It sounded
So
like
Creekside is a site. There
Right.
are 3 fields at Creekside.
Yeah, I'm thinking of field, since Sunday use is by field. So at most 10 Sundays per field. Yeah.
Okay, Councilmember Wei, will you accept that amendment to the motion?
I really think Vice Mayor Chow means 10 Sundays.
10
That's not-
Sundays per
yeah.
field.
Okay. Okay, so we're talking about 2 extra hours on the difference. So
It's
I
already-
don't see why.
It's already in the motion.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So the question is whether you will accept, as the seconder of the motion, Vice Mayor Chow's modification to her motion, in which each field, not each site, but each field is limited to 10 Sunday uses a year.
Each field.
Yes.
Okay, so that means if Creekside has 3 fields, then each field can still have 10 Sundays. That means we have a lot of Sundays. I really think we should have, if you want to limit it, it should be each site, how many Sundays you want to limit. Because if you say 3 fields, this field use this 3 Sundays, that field use that 10 Sundays, they could be different Sundays. Then you're going to have a lot of Sunday tournaments until 4 o'clock. I would think Vice Mayor Chow means 10 Sundays per site, so that the residents can enjoy the rest of the Sunday. Is that what you mean?
I'm fine with that. So 10.
Okay, I'm
at most 10 Sundays per site. The 10 Sundays including tournament and the Sunday field use.
So they can use it up to 10 to 4 o'clock, 10 Sundays per site.
Yeah.
Okay. I really want to ask staff. Right now, you already have a field that's 10 Sundays a site. Is that good? Is that okay if we add 2 more Sundays? Is that good easy to administer?
I think it's easy. I think we can manage it.
Okay. Because that
Okay, then I would.
That kind of exempt Creekside from the additional Sundays which Councilmember Moore wants. And then it leaves
Okay, I would
other
accept the.
the other field which has 2 or 4 days right now, there is a max for them too. So it's
Okay, I'll accept the amendment. Yes.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the table. We have Councilmember Moore's hand up as well as Councilmember Way's hand up. Councilmember Moore,
Okay, I was
very
wondering,
limited amount of time left.
well, okay. I don't think so, but I need to ask Katie a question. So if we allow 10 Sundays as is suggested, what is that versus what we have currently? So I need to understand what the motion is. And then also, so because I don't know that everyone's aware of this, that the fields are used for commercial use for lessons.
That is your time. I'll go ahead and start my timer.
All right. But you've got group lesson use, which wasn't addressed in this policy whatsoever, and that really needs to be taken care of.
Did anyone want to speak to that from staff?
Oh, I thought she was addressing Katie, sorry.
So for the actual paid lessons, if it's not a nonprofit, they would fall into the for-profit category. So they get a lower priority in scheduling, and they also would pay a higher fee. As far as the 10 Sundays, I mean, what it would, basically this limitation would mean they would max out of 10 Sundays at Creekside, and then you would have to schedule elsewhere, or they would not be able to have them. I'm not sure exactly what the question is.
So currently, how many Sundays are they allowed to have?
So we don't limit it by site. We limit it per group. So earlier we had mentioned that we estimate at a maximum Creekside might have 10 Sundays used currently.
Okay.
Does that make sense? But that's not per a requirement of some kind. The only restraint under the current policy is they can only have 2 Sunday tournaments a year per group.
Okay, and currently for years, there's been no enforcement of the Sunday field use, which has been going on, for 20 years. Okay, so foreseeably, you're going to have Sunday play every Sunday.
Well, again, and it's going to be complaint based, and it'll also be easier for us going to this hourly schedule is going to make it easier for us to determine who's supposed to be out there at a given time. And we can post a schedule so that the public can know if people are out there that aren't supposed to be there. So that will help in our enforcement.
Okay, so that's 2 minutes into my time. I'll go ahead and run the clock. We're basically out of time on the discussion, but Vice Mayor Chow, you have your hand raised. Did you want to make a comment or a follow-up point?
I was going to talk about this earlier when I raised my hand. This is the table for the fee schedule increase. So which column is the proposed fee increase? Is the one recommended by the commission, the middle
Yes.
one? So that's
Yes,
the recommended one. So some group might be seeing a 7 times increase.
Mhm.
Some are 2 times. And these are Cupertino residents, but one might see a reduction. So did we get feedback from these groups that will see significant increase in their fee?
We've had feedback from Little League about their fields. I think they came to the last meeting and they have also sent in information about that. We did have input. We did again notify the groups that the fees structure would probably be changing about 15 months ago. So they have been aware of it. I can say that we did talk to all the groups. Cricket Academy did ask for time to implement the new fee structure. The new fee structure originally was supposed to go into place this past January, sorry. They had asked for extra time until March of 2021. So this would not go into effect until the new fiscal year, which would be July 1st. So it would be the next time they permit fields.
Okay. So for this one, it's like 500 to 4,000 over.
Mhm.
I think it's true that we want to charge a comparable
30
fee
seconds.
against other cities. And since we haven't increased the fee for so many years, all of a sudden have a big increase. And in the middle of pandemic, I'm still very concerned about how practical this is. Can I propose that we maybe do a 50% increase now and then give existing teams a waiver for next year, so then have a full increase next year? Is that possible?
Vice Mayor Chow, I'd like to propose a friendly amendment. I think it's the same as what you're saying, but I'd like to propose a 2-year phase-in based upon the proposed fee schedule, so that in this upcoming fiscal year, it's 50% of what's proposed, and the following fiscal year, it's the full rate of what's proposed. And the rationale I agree with. So would you accept that as a friendly amendment to your motion? 2-year phase-in, same structure. It's just that the full fee schedule is realized in the following fiscal year. In this initial fiscal year, it's 50% across the board of what's being proposed.
Yeah. So I'd like to summarize. So the motion now is individual Sunday field use would be allowed from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Second, at most 10 Sundays per site by either tournament use or individual Sunday use. And an update to the council in 1 year and 2-year phasing of the fee increase with 50% in first year and then 100% next year.
Okay, so you're accepting that last friendly amendment.
Yeah.
Councilmember Wei, will you accept that as a second
Yes.
original motion?
Yes.
Okay. I have no comments, so if anyone else has comments, I'll cede the remainder of my 4 minutes, but I'll do it in an even fashion. Here, Vice Mayor Chow and Councilmember Moore, I see you don't have time left. Councilmember Wei, because of the way that I'm doing this, all your comments have been basically within motions. So I haven't been starting the clock there. You have about 5 minutes left. Councilmember Woolley, you have about 1:46 exactly, actually. So if anyone has any other comments on this, I'm happy to call on hands. But there is a motion and a second on the table. I don't see any further hands. And so, Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct a roll call vote?
Councilmember Moore,
No?
Councilmember Wei,
Aye.
Councilmember Willie,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow,
Aye.
Mayor Paul.
Aye.
The motion carries with Moore voting no.
Okay, let's go on to item number 13 at this point. And item number 13 is under public hearings per our arrangement of the items at the beginning of this meeting. The subject is a consideration of the proposed fiscal year 2021 to 2022 fee schedule. And so that was postponed from our April 20th, 2021 meeting. Madam City Manager, would you like to introduce the staff presenter or presenters of this item?
I believe it is our own Zach Korach who's going to start this off.
Great,
Great, welcome, Zach.
Share my screen here. Okay, so good evening, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members, Zach Korach, Finance Manager. The item before you is the fiscal year 21-22 fee schedule update. We're going to be discussing what a fee is, the various fees for city services, the history and development of the fees over the last 6 to 7 years, some new fees and proposed changes to existing fees, the fiscal impact, and then lastly, the recommended actions. So when we are talking about user fees, they are a fee or a rate charged to an individual or a group that receives a private benefit from services provided by the city. And we'll look at some of those various city services. They're all included on 5 schedules, A through E. The first being general fees. These are miscellaneous fees that are not associated with one specific department or division. Good examples of this would be abatement fees, false alarms, or PRA requests. Schedule B is engineering, mostly taken care of by Public Works and their engineering group. This would encompass design and inspection services. For Schedule C and planning, that's where we look at current planning, mid and long range planning. Schedule D, building fees, also within the Community Development Department. We're talking about general building, construction plan check, and building code enforcement. Schedule E, Parks and Recreation. These are the various services offered by, of course, the Parks and Recreation Department, and the fees for these are market driven. So the history of the development and the increases for fees year over year, I'll focus on the top line here for the proposed fiscal year. CPI, or Consumer Price Index, of 1.5% is applied to Schedule A, the general fees. It's also applied to a few select fees on Schedule C in planning. The estimated cost of labor increase is 5.7%. What goes into that estimated labor cost increase would be cost of living adjustments, position step increases, and most notably any increases in retirement and retiree health or for medical costs. And the estimated labor cost, that is applied to Schedule B, C, as well as D. And then lastly, CCI, or Construction Cost Index. This is being proposed at a rate of 2.5% and only comes into play on Schedule B for engineering. So for new fees, and we're going to discuss also just some changes to existing fees. We start with Schedule A and the general fees. In accordance with the city's municipal code, section 8.05.010, a permit is required for operating a kennel, and the city council may fix an annual permit fee. So staff are recommending a commercial kennel permit fee in the amount of $302, which represents 1 hour of community development staff time, and it is anticipated that this will not exceed the cost of providing that service. For Schedule B, there are no new fees being proposed. These are two relatively minor edits. The first being a name change for two existing fees. There are review fees for geotechnical and structural services, and those two fees are being proposed to be renamed to professional services third-party consultant review. Those two particular fees are not carried out or performed by city staff, but rather they are contracted by third parties. The reason for this change is to expand the scope for various services that can be offered for these types of specialized services for customers. Next, the parkland dedication in lieu fee. This is a correction of an error in the current year's fee schedule. It had included a fee for ADU 750 square feet or less. That should have been stated as ADU 750 square feet or more. There was no fiscal impact as a result of that error in the current fiscal year. For Schedule C, a mobile vending permit, also at a rate of $302. This represents 1 hour of community development staff time. The permit application for mobile vending permits has yet to be finalized, but it is anticipated to be completed before the start of the upcoming fiscal year. And again, it is anticipated that this fee amount will not exceed the cost of providing that service. For Schedule D, the building fee. This is a new fee, Board of Appeals, at a rate of $221. This represents 1 hour of building staff time. It's being proposed to ensure sufficient cost recovery for applicants that choose to appeal the decision made by the city's building official. Typically, these appeal hearings can take or require 4 hours of staff time, but in the event that a potential hearing could only take 1 or 2 hours, staff are recommending that it is established at an hourly rate. Schedule E, Parks and Recreation. We have a few changes to this schedule. The first will cover the Senior Center. Membership fees for both residents and non-residents are increasing by $2. Flex Pass at a rate of $7 is a fee that has been charged in the past but was omitted from the fee schedule. This is essentially a drop-in pass for senior center members to try out specific fitness classes that are listed in the 50 and over scene. For Sports Center, you'll see in the red line reports, significant changes here. It's mostly cleanup in an attempt to simplify the application or the participation process. The day pass and drop-in packages are being removed. And as a result, a single day pass fee will be charged, again, to simplify and shorten the process for customers. For membership fees at the Sports Center, an adjustment is being made to maintain a difference or a disparity of 20% consistent with the remainder, or with the rest of the fees on the schedule between what residents versus non-residents are charged. And lastly, I omitted it from this slide, but in the staff report, we also note that childcare fees are being removed from the schedule. This is due to cost recovery limitations as well as low enrollment. And so that service will be no longer provided and ultimately eliminated. Outdoor facilities, field attendant fees is increasing from $14 to $17, and this aligns with the current minimum wage requirements. Softball field fees are increasing by $5 and $10 for residents and non-residents respectively. Sports field fees, I won't go into any of these because I know we discussed it heavily in the previous item. If there are questions, we can certainly take those. Community garden. So with the opening of community garden in the spring of 2021, it's recommended that a fee be enacted at a 40% cost recovery level. It'll ultimately be a $110 fee with a $55 PG&E Cares program discount. A refundable deposit will be required for any customer desiring or wishing to have a community garden plot. Fees, and this is an important note, we'll see it in the recommended actions, that we have two separate resolutions. The first being the approval of and the amendment of the current year's fee schedule for fiscal year 2021. And in that red line fee schedule, we'll see that the only proposed change is the inclusion or the addition of these community garden fees. And as a result, they would be effective on May 5th, 2021. And again, this is because community garden is newly opening prior to the start of the upcoming fiscal year. Blackberry Farm Golf, club rental rates is the only notable change on this schedule. Golf club rental rates are being changed to a flat $10 fee for all age groups, as opposed to having a varying schedule for either adults versus youth or juniors. Then we come to the fiscal impact. I'll preface and say that it is very difficult to estimate the additional revenue that can be generated by applying these annual escalators, because much of the fees, both from a volume as well as a dollar amount, can fluctuate based on the demand of the community. But taking 3-year averages of the revenues that have been received by the city for each of these schedules, and also applying the escalators such as CPI, the cost of labor, and CCI, we would estimate the additional revenues that are shown on this screen. And so with the recommendation or the recommended action, as I mentioned earlier, the first is to adopt a resolution, number 21, amending the current year, fiscal year 2021 fee schedule E to only add the community garden fee effective May 5th of 2021. And then secondly, adopting the resolution approving fiscal year 21-22 fee schedules A through E effective July 3rd, 2021.
Okay, thank you very much, Zach. We have Councilmember Moore with her hand raised for a question.
Thank you, Zach. I just have kind of a process question. So for item N, the field use fees in comparison with, and maybe the fee schedule in either Q or R, because council altered the fees in item 14, would that then need to be altered for this item, which does beg the question of the interconnectedness of these two these two agenda items. So that's my first question. And then my second question is for the city attorney, because I did not vote for the item 14 fees that were selected. I think, to me, that I have to either abstain or vote no on this kind of as de facto. I'd like some help on that.
So the council gave direction on the field use policy that the fees would be phased over 2 years with 50% this year. And so I think perhaps Katie Nomura can clarify which fees would be what amount under that direction, and this proposed staff, the staff's proposed recommendation for this item includes the council direction from the last item. And so the fee charts that are now for your consideration would include that 50% reduction in some of the field use fees. And you can vote on that, or you could ask to change it again, I suppose, if you want to. But you're free to vote on this item as you like, or make any motion you like to on this item.
Okay, and just to clarify, the 50% was to get to what ultimate point? Because it was my understanding it was going to be stepwise up to 40% cost recovery, and that the first step was happening now, and then there would be subsequent steps in the future. So if it's 50%, it's 50% of what level?
Of what was proposed at the last result. And so I think this might be a good time, Katie, if you could just step in and clarify what the exact fees would be. That's proposed.
Can everyone see this, or is it not working?
You can see this, yes, thank you.
Okay, cool. So basically, the resident nonprofit youth organization used to be 10, it would be 5. Now the next one is 15, subsequent is 25, and the last one is $30 an hour per field. So our understanding of what the motion was this is what we would adopt this year. Then next year we would do the full amount of what was proposed this evening. So we'd go up to the 10, 30, 50, and $60. And then in subsequent years after that, we will reevaluate and potentially recommend any changes at that time.
Okay. Thank you, Councilmember Moore. I guess I'll ask a follow-up question to that. So, Madam City Attorney, could we bifurcate the motion? Could we vote separately upon the field use items, for Councilmember Moore's benefit, essentially, if there's just simply a disagreement as to, or to keep consistent with the voting on the field use item?
Yeah, yes, we have a resolution that is written to approve all the fees for the 2021-22 fiscal schedule. So you could basically amend that draft resolution to exclude the field use fees, and then have a motion to adopt a second resolution that would basically include only the field use fees. So I think we could do that. Okay.
Well, I'm just a question. I see we're running into a logistical issue possibly if we want to get this done this evening. Okay. Any other questions from Council? Vice Mayor Chow.
My understanding is the last item, the resolution includes the fees, increase the fee schedule. So do we have to vote again on this item? Can we just vote on this item, excluding the fee schedule, things for the Sunday field use, since that was already in the previous resolution? Do I have to separate and vote twice on this item?
Yeah, one was to have the fees reflected in the policy, and this is now to have the fees reflected in this fee schedule that the city adopts. So you do need to do it in both.
Oh, so the last one didn't include the fee schedule. Okay.
It was just to have that reflected in the policy that was approved.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. I don't see any other hands raised with regard to questions from Council. I've set everyone on a 6-minute timer. Sorry, I should have mentioned that to you beforehand, but if we need more time, we'll take more time after public comment. So members of the public, if you have any comments, please raise your hand. I don't see any members of the public with their hands raised. I see George Chong with his hand raised now. And by the time George finishes his comments, you'll need to have your hand up. It does seem like we might have some issues with regard to the technology and seeing hands today. And so if you don't see your hand raised and you're trying to do so, please email the city clerk to indicate that you want to speak. Each of the members of the public will have up to 3 minutes. And again, you'll need to have your hand raised or email the city clerk by the time the first member of the public concludes speaking. Welcome, George.
Hello, City Council. Thank you, Mayor, for the time. I hope you can hear me.
We can.
I apologize for missing the last meeting. I was coaching a Little League team, and I'm speaking as a parent and as a coach and as a board member for Cupertino Little League. I just wanted to, it sounds like the minds are made up, but I'd like to just add one more plea to reconsider the field use fees. We are a Little League that services most of the city of Cupertino. And as a nonprofit, we make the most of the dollars that we have. And the field use fees, while I can understand the motivation to try to recoup all of the cost in equitable fashion to the cities around us, I feel like the analysis may fall short of really an apples to apples comparison, given the population differences, the amount of kids that use the fields and the nonprofits that actually make use of these fields as well. And I guess my biggest concern is that we are in an overall demographic decline of kids just having smaller enrollments, consequently smaller enrollments in outdoor activities. And I guess it's a plea to consider that these kind of field use fees changes are a existential threat to these leagues. And I can speak that firsthand as a board member for the Little League. So I'm appreciative of the fact that we might ease into this 50% and moving forward. But I also wanted to comment that if the need is to be more efficient with the fields, could there be a round of dialogue before we believe that the real mechanism to get more efficient would be enacting more fees? And so I ask whatever we can do to ease into these fees, I think would be a great service to all the organizations. I know that overall, I think we all agree that the kids need to be outdoors, and public health is, greatly serviced by kids being active. So that this is just my comment and hope that the City Council will keep this in consideration as it deliberates today and next year and whenever fees considerations come up. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Madam City Clerk, are there any other emails in? I don't see any other hands raised in Zoom.
No, Mayor, I've received none.
Okay, let's bring it back to council. I'll entertain a motion. Councilmember Moore, would you like to bring forward a motion? Your hand is raised.
I'm sorry, Mayor Paul. It was to have a clarifying question regarding the mobile vending registration fee.
Okay. I will entertain a motion at this point if any motion is so forthcoming. Let me go ahead and bring forward a motion for the purposes of going forth with a discussion. I'll go ahead and move the recommended action, which is to adopt resolution number 21-033, amending fiscal year 2020 to 2021 fee schedule E to add a community garden effective, a community garden fee effective May 5th, 2021. And second, to adopt resolution number 21-034, approving fiscal year 2021 to 2022 fee schedules A, B, C, D, and E effective July 3rd, 2021, with the exceptions of the field use fee schedules that were discussed earlier this evening in item number 14. So far, that is the only exception to the motion I'll bring forward at this point, although I'm open to friendly amendments. Is there a second on this motion for the purposes of discussion? I'll go by a show of hands if there are. Councilmember White?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table. Councilmember Moore, you did have your hand up first, so I'll return to you for bringing this forward.
Okay. Through the mayor, Zach, I was wondering if you could explain the mobile vending fee. What is that for?
This would be for any mobile vendors within the city of Cupertino. In accordance with the city's code, they would be required to apply and receive a permit in order to conduct their business. But I see Ben and Pew have jumped on, so I'll probably defer to them.
Okay, welcome Ben, Mayor Pew.
Thank you, Zach. That was actually a good explanation. And to answer your question, I might have Pew jump on here to help me with the details here. But council has approved the mobile vending ordinance, and the fee is meant to cover 1 hour staff time to process the application. There's a number of different processes and sort of employees that touches every one of these permits as they submit through the city system. So this is just meant to be sort of a cost recovery as permits come in.
Okay.
Sorry, through the mayor, I have another question. So we approved the mobile vendors for, for personal services and all that. So that is, or what you're saying is that if a food truck wanted to permit here, it's $300 or so. I just don't recall having the entire mobile vending ordinance pass through. It doesn't mean that it didn't, but I recall that the carts, the mobile carts, we had made an approval for that.
That's right.
But what about, did we come to a conclusion regarding food trucks?
No, good memory. Actually, I think what was approved is sidewalk vending only. The motorized vending was not approved at that time. Pew, do you remember anything more to add?
That's absolutely correct. So the only portion of the ordinance that was approved by the council was the sidewalk vending, which is basically fruit carts and other kinds of, people walking around with goods that they're vending, but not the motorized vending. That was still on hold, and it's on hold pending the new work program as well on that item as well.
Okay, so we kind of have a fee here. Are you allowed to have mobile vendors in trucks, food trucks, going around Cupertino currently?
No, it's still called a mobile vendor registration, even for the sidewalk vendors. The name of that registration is called mobile vendor registration. And so we would look at the ordinance to figure out whether if they're a motorized vendor, we would say, no, you're not allowed. But if you're a sidewalk vendor, then that's when you could register.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Moore. Vice Mayor Chow, you have 5 minutes and 14 seconds left.
Question. I understand that some of the services have been moved to virtual, and so would there be any reduction of the fee because we are doing things virtually? We don't have to go on site. There is less travel time. I wonder about that.
Mayor, if I may respond.
Please, Director Fu.
Thank you very much. I can only speak with in terms of our community development permits or planning and building permits. The answer is no. It actually doesn't change the number of hours and the effort that we put into each to process each permit. Still go through the same electronic processing, and we'll still have staff that have to review and process. Still doing site visits, whether it's planning, permit site visits, building site visits, inspections. We still have to conduct those as well in order to finalize all the permits.
Okay.
So I would say, if anything, sometimes it takes maybe a little bit longer because of the virtual coordination.
Digitization of the process does not really include efficiency so far.
That's correct. Yeah, because we still need human beings to process all the electronic submittals.
Okay, Vice Mayor Chow, I don't see further questions or comments. Any other comments at this point? Okay, well, if there are no comments further, then I will go ahead and ask our city clerk to conduct a roll call vote.
Mayor, if I may, can I clarify the motion? And maybe it's only me that was confused.
Yes, please do.
When you said approve the fee schedules, accepting the field use schedules, did you mean accepting the draft field use schedules and including the field use schedules as directed by council in the earlier item?
I thought I said that last part.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, so I did state accepting, I think it was, let me see if this is correct. It was E, Schedule E, and adopting the field use fees as discussed in item 14.
Great, thank you.
Okay. So that's the motion on the table. I just want to confirm with my seconder that's Councilmember Roy's understanding of the motion as well.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so we have the motion and the second clarified. And so, Madam City Clerk, would you please conduct a roll call vote?
Councilmember Moore,
No.
Councilmember Wei.
Aye.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, aye.
Aye, okay. Councilmember Willie,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow,
Aye.
Mayor Paul.
Aye.
Motion carries with Moore voting no.
Okay, we are on to item number 15, back under ordinances and action items. The subject is consideration of a city council summer recess and cancellation of certain meetings. Madam City Manager, would you like to provide the update, provide the description of this item?
Yes, every year the council considers summer recess, and it has a short history of taking the first meeting in July and the first meeting in August as the recess, not two consecutive meetings. That's certainly your prerogative. The year before, I believe it was late, or maybe I'm reversing it. 2019 was on time, and 2020, I believe we took like one meeting in August and one meeting in September. But it's something that you consider every year. This year in particular, the cities are moving together in terms of reopening plans potentially. And so they're kind of hovering around July and August as well. So we'd love to be in coordination with that and the county.
Okay, thank you, Madam City Manager. Are there any questions with regard to this proposal from council before I open it up to the members of the public? Quick question, Madam City Manager. When you say other cities, are you referring to other cities in the county or West Valley, or which cities are we referring to here?
In the county. All county cities are looking at July and August.
The first meetings in July and August.
Well, not exactly the way we are. Ours will still work. Most of them are looking at a full recess of July, like both meetings in July. I would say most of them are.
Understood. Okay, thank you very much. I'll move this over to Vice Mayor Chow, who has her hand raised. Vice Mayor Chow.
So our current plan is likely going back. I mean, all the city staff and the next real physical council meeting will likely be in August. Is that what we are thinking of?
That's what we're kind of thinking. There's varying views at this point, whether it's the first meeting in August or by the second meeting in August. This is where the other cities and us are varying slightly, but those plans will still be emerging. But we are kind of planning in that August timeframe is what I'll say.
So right now we are not really we are not deciding if we are going physical or virtual now. We are just deciding whether we want to take one meeting off in July and another in August.
Correct.
Maybe two in July.
Correct. That's correct.
Do you feel we have more business? There is a schedule. So do you feel we have enough time if we cancel two meetings or more?
Say that question that again.
With the upcoming agenda items we have now, and then we actually have been postponing items because we are not going over midnight, which is great. Then do you envision that we actually will have more items? We can cancel two meetings or three meetings.
I think we have plenty of room because this is the busiest time of the year through the second meeting in June.
So if we cancel 2 meetings as before, we are fine. How about 3?
Yes. I'm all for it. We could work it out. It's all about scheduling. It's all about scheduling.
Okay.
Okay.
That's up to council.
All right. Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. I'll bring it open to members of the public. Jennifer Griffin has her hand raised. And again, by the time Jennifer concludes speaking, you'll need to have your hand up in order to be called upon. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mayor Darcy. I do think I appreciate this, but we need to make sure that the public, it is announced every time when the public input is open and when it closed. We're going real fast with this, but I appreciate you trying to keep the stuff on schedule. I had my second COVID today. My arm is swelling right now, so I apologize. Anyway, I had my second COVID shot. I just wanted to say I will tell you right now that I don't think we should cancel all the meetings in 1 month. There is too much stuff going on. I don't know about you, but the stuff that is going on with the high density housing bills takes up a great deal of my time. And I don't think we have the potential recall vote of the governor coming up, which I believe is after September. I'm a little bit confused about that. But I do think, especially now, since it is not recommended that a lot of people take lots and lots of international trips, we need to be cognizant that there are some extremely powerful and dynamic things that are happening in our state. And a lot of this potential for the Sacramento takeover by whatever's going on here is taking up a lot of the public's time. And I think it's important that if you're going to, I wouldn't cancel 3. There's no way. But you need to make sure that you have the potential to call an emergency meeting if you need. So I don't think that we should be canceling like everything in July. We need to have the platform to give our public input. I feel like right now there are things that are happening at the state level that we in the public have no control over. And I want to know that my city is available as a platform to give my input, because our governor and some of our politicians do not want any public input. I went back and read again about how the Revolutionary War began with the Boston Tea Party and things that happened in Virginia and all 13 colonies. And I can tell you right now, we are heading down that road. I don't want us, yes, something as trivial as canceling things. I want my city to be there as a platform to speak, because there are people in this state that want to suppress local input. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And I don't see any other hands raised. Once again, I apologize if people didn't hear on one item the opening of public comment. I still believe that I did ask for the public comment and simply didn't see the hands. But Madam City Clerk, did you happen to receive any emails with regard to wanting to speak on item 15 while Jennifer was speaking?
I have received none, Mayor.
None? Okay, thank you very much. So we'll bring it back to council for a motion prior to further discussion on this. Councilmember Moore, would you like to bring forth a motion? No? Okay. Well, then I will bring forth the recommended action as the motion. I move that City Council cancel the July 6th and the August 3rd, 2021 meetings. And may I have a second for that? Councilmember Way.
I'll second that.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second on the table. Would anyone like to speak to the motion or have follow-up questions? Councilmember Moore.
I just want to clarify that we would be removing the first meeting of July. We don't have a meeting the second week of July, so we wouldn't be back until the third week of July. Is that correct?
That's correct. Our meeting in July would be on, or I should say our regularly scheduled meeting in July would be on July 20th.
Okay, so really, and then in June, we would have met on the 1st and the 15th. Is that right? We would have met on the 1st and the 15th and then had the 29th off because that would have been the 3rd Tuesday, right? So we're 1st and 3rd. So we would have had June 29th already off. Is that correct?
From regular council meetings, if the first, I don't have a calendar in front of me, but if the 1st of June is a Tuesday, then yes, that is correct.
Okay, so what it's looking like is if we're doing the regular council meetings is that our last meeting would be June 15th. And then we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks free until the 20th of July. So I just want you to know that I don't need that much time off. So I really can't support that one. It's too long of a stretch. And so I won't be supporting this motion.
Okay, well, thank you, Councilmember. I will point out that, it is very unlikely that we will not be meeting in that 5-week stretch. But also point out that that's the end of the fiscal cycle. And so it probably is a good idea to provide some time for staff to be able to regroup and transition into the 21-22 fiscal year as well. But I think we've done a lot of work and, have been able to bring forward a lot of good changes and items. So hopefully we can take that amount of time. But again, I wouldn't anticipate in those 5 weeks that we wouldn't, for example, have a special meeting to receive litigation updates. And then I think invariably we will have a special meeting or even 2 during that time period. Councilmember Way, you have your hand up.
Yes, I would support it because I'm here, I can take meetings all the time. But for council members who have families, I think it's good to have a family plan this summer to go away. But if we need emergency meetings, I'm pretty sure you're gonna bring your laptops and we can still meet via Zoom. So I'm comfortable supporting it so that you can start to make some summer vacation time planning, and I think that's perfectly fine. But we're all very responsible, and I think if we need meetings, we can always call you guys back via Zoom.
Thank you, Councilmember Way. No one else has their hand up, so I'll just go ahead and make a comment here. I'm actually open to the first meeting in August as well as the first meeting in September, similarly to how we did it last year as well. I mean, if the concern is that there's going to be too much of a time lag between the second meeting in June and the regularly scheduled second meeting in July, I see that. And in fact, I'm a bit of an optimist, frankly, and in the interest of full disclosure, recently I did send over a request to our city manager to consider a drone show, as opposed to a fireworks show. So my secret hope, that's not so secret anymore, is that we still have people, coming in and working around the 4th to help us deliver something, modern, but very interesting. It's not quite a light show. I think it's fireworks with a very modern bent to it. But in any event, I would be open to having the July 6th meeting, frankly, if the meeting close to Labor Day would be something that would, be entertainable, if you will, as a canceled meeting. So, Councilmember Willie.
Well, I can do either. I'd prefer to have the 1st of July or the 6th of July, because it falls right next to the 4th of July, and we always take that week as a family outing to Southern California. And so we do that, then it's going to be a challenge to get back on the day of the 6th. But if we truly have a council meeting, I guess I'll just have to move those days. So either one, but that's always worked good. The 4th of July is kind of a celebratory time off as opposed to a Labor Day.
Understood. Thank you, Councilmember Willie. Any other, and again, we have the mechanism of the special meetings as well. But I don't see any other hands raised at this point. And so I will ask the city manager to please conduct a roll call vote on the motion on the table. And to recap, that's the recommended action of canceling the July 6th and the August 3rd regular meetings of our city council.
Councilmember Moore,
No?
Councilmember Wei,
Aye.
Councilmember Willie,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow,
Aye.
Mayor Paul.
Aye.
Motion carries with Moore voting no.
Okay, we are at the last item on our agenda prior to adjournment, and that's council and staff comments and future agenda items. I'll go ahead and provide a couple of minutes for each person. And so, Madam City Manager, did you have any staff comments that you wanted to make at this point?
I don't have any staff comments at this time. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I'll go by a show of hands. Are there any comments from council prior to adjournment? Vice Mayor Chow.
Actually, my comment is I believe we do allow public comment to continue now. So for those who missed to comment on item 11, I wonder, should we give them a chance to speak now?
Yeah, let's have the city attorney speak to the legalities of that.
That item is on the agenda for the circumstance when we have very large public comment during the oral communications time, and per our order of agenda items policy, the chair can continue the public comment to the end of the meeting. And so that did not occur at this point. So that agenda item is basically not available for further public comment on closed items.
Okay.
Okay, Vice Mayor Chow, did you have anything else on this?
No.
Oh, okay, I don't see any other hands raised at this point. And so I'll move on to our adjournment. Thank you very much. That concludes our May 4th, 2021 meeting of the Cupertino City Council. We will see you for our next regularly scheduled meeting on May 18th. Thanks very much.